You're listening to the Fertility Docs Uncensored podcast, featuring insight on all things fertility from some of the top-rated doctors around America. Whether you're struggling to conceive or just planning for your future family, we're here to guide you every step of the way.
Welcome to Fertility Docs Uncensored. I am Dr. Carrie Bedient from the Fertility Center of Las Vegas, and I have with me Dr. Abby Eblen from Nashville Fertility Center and Dr. Susan Hudson from the Texas Fertility Center. And we are delighted to have two of my patients here with us today. We have Courtney and Danielle, and you guys have been together for quite some time now, or have known each other, I should say. How long ago did you meet?
We knew each other 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's been 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And together 13 years, married for 4 now.
There you go.
So how did you two meet?
In college. I'm actually originally from Southern California, but Courtney's born and raised in Las Vegas. And so we met in college through sports. And we had been really good friends for a long time. Dating other people, but then we finally realized, hey, we actually really like being around each other a lot. So, we've been inseparable since.
So how long have you been dating then before you guys got married? Ish.
So 9 years.
Yeah.
We got married actually on our 9-year anniversary.
Oh,
yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
And I love how you both look at each other, doing that date checkup. Am I going to say the same thing she's saying? Am I going to get in trouble?
I noticed that too. That's funny.
Yeah, I don't want to talk over her either. So we were, yeah.
How did you guys decide to get married when you did?
Well, you tell them the part about how we decided, and then I'll go into the
Sure.
proposal.
So it kind of just kept getting, I'll say, postponed. We were waiting for the right time, you'll call it. And I'm not sure if there's ever a right time. And so with different job changes and things like that,
going to school, and we moved in between there.
Yeah, both of us went back to school. And so life was kind of just getting in the way. And so it just got, I'll say extended. But I think from day one for both of us, it felt like we were married. And so we were content with that. And
the best part is we both have sisters who have had been married through either us dating or, before that. And they all had these really big, elaborate weddings. So the more years that passed, I would tease her and say, oh, well, the more that this passes, I get to plan what I really want. Like at some point I wanted to be at the beach. And then at some point I wanted to be around my family in California. And I wanted it to be around Christmas. So I just kept saying things. And Courtney at one point said, at some point you're going to ask me to have Santa Claus literally roll in off a dolphin with your ring. And I was like, yes, that sounds perfect. That would be the greatest proposal ever.
So how did it actually happen?
Yeah. So I had no idea it was coming, first of all, because we had talked about, we had just moved and we just got into a house. And so there was a lot of, in a few years, we'll plan on this when we can. And neither one of us were too interested in the big wedding anymore because living through
You've
that
been to several of them.
Yeah. You were bridesmaid enough and now you're over it.
Yeah. And it's a lot of planning. And anyway, so we were good with it being something smaller, but she had told me that we were going to go for President's Day weekend, actually, which also had Valentine's Day wrapped into it, like this weekend. We were going to go wine tasting in California with her sister.
Ooh.
So we were, in my mind, I always let my parents know like where we're going to go just in case, that anything ever came up. So I had told my parents that we were flying into Northern California because I thought we were doing wine tasting up there. But I was so out of touch with what she had actually been planning this whole time because I had a job that made me travel a lot. I was only home maybe 2 or 3 days out of the entire month. And so she said she was going to plan this. And I knew I just needed to be home from a work trip and have another suitcase packed ready to go. So I told my parents we're going wine tasting in Northern California. Well, long story short, we got all the way through security at the airport and to the gate before I realized that the place that we were going to was Southern California, was in Orange County, not Northern. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even notice. I told the security guy at TSA because he was like, oh, where are you guys going? I'm like, oh, we're going to go to San Francisco, as he's stamping my, ticket that says clearly Orange County, and I'm not paying any attention.
Oh, so this wasn't a secret. This was on your ticket and you just...
I missed the detail.
Okay.
I traveled so much for my job. job when I was going to travel for, pleasure. I wasn't going to pay attention to any of those details. I knew she'd had it under control. So anyways, I panically called my parents on the airplane and say, hey, I'm so sorry. I thought we were going to Northern California. I missed it, but I'm sitting on the airplane because I had before Courtney because I had rewards, right? So I got to board airplane first. So anyway, I called them like secretively, I think, and say, don't let Courtney know. She would be so disappointed if I wasn't paying that close attention to this wonderful trip. And I'm sitting on the airplane. We're going to Orange County. I'll let you know where we end up. And I should have known something was up at that point because my mom.
Parents were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, she was so too cool about it. Like, no big deal. Just enjoy. And that is not my mom's personality.
So more than just Courtney was in on it then, huh?
So you guys come by your planning, honestly, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyways, this really could be the longest story ever. But the highlights are we finally get to Southern California. We're staying in a hotel for one night, and then we're supposed to meet her sister the next day. And I got up and, did my hair, makeup, all the normal things because I think we're going wine tasting. And she kept telling me, oh, my sister called. She's not ready yet. It's postponing. And I didn't know where they were coming from. And all I thought was, she's late and we're never going to get to the actual place that I want to go taste wine first, right? So the whole day passes and Courtney starts saying things to me like, well, why don't we go get our hair done at the blow dry bar? And why don't we go get our makeup done? Which is the polar opposite of anything, if you knew her well. That's not anything she's ever interested in, but she knows I'm really interested in it. And instead of just going with it, I literally said, why? I've already done my hair and makeup. It's fine. Like, how late is she going to be?
Hopefully there's some wine in the story because I think you really wanted some wine.
Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah, fast forward to the proposal. Her parents were in there. My parents came into town and her sister came down.
Yeah, she had like a 45-minute video of every picture we'd ever taken together for all those years.
Yeah, and they all helped to kind of get that all planned out or set up, I guess, in the room. So
and then
what a neat surprise.
Yeah, the next morning she even had more of my family come and meet us for breakfast. My aunt and my cousins got to be there and see, it still gets me choked up. It was really,
so
and there was a little
sweet.
Christmas tree in the, and the ring was in a box under the Christmas tree. So she really did.
She really did roll in Santa.
Weekend, and yet there was a Christmas tree there with the ring under the Christmas tree. That's cool.
Yeah, she really
Nice
went all
touch.
out. It was awesome. And she had cameras set up all over the room. So we have it all video recorded too. So that's even more special. Yeah.
This makes so much sense knowing both of you because when you both came to my office, I mean, Courtney, you're in law. Danielle, you're a special educator and in a very high-powered position within that that arena. And when you both came in to talk to me for the first time, you were sitting there, and I remember your notebook, and you took notes, and I felt like I'm important. Someone is actually listening to me. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And just every visit we had, the notebook popped out and the questions were very clearly written down. And you both were just so methodical about everything. This fits perfectly. I mean, your story just matches.
Yeah.
So did you do a lot of research before coming in? Because you guys, many of our patients, when they come in, they don't anticipate having to be in our office one day. But you guys kind of knew, all right, we're gonna need some help somewhere along the line. So had you tried anything at home before coming to see me, or did you just come straight to the fertility office to say, okay, what do we do and how do we do it?
So we researched what we could on the internet, but we also know don't trust, everything you read. And so that's kind of where we tried to develop our questions from. And but then everything else was off the first meeting with you.
Yeah. And we had friends that had gone through this process as well for the same reasons that we went through the process. And some of them had actually been to your fertility clinic first. We did have some friends that had gone someplace else, but all of the clinics offered some sort of like, come get to know us or, learn about what we offer. So we did both of those at your clinic and at the other place. And it was a no-brainer once they start to talk about the staff because everything else, like the procedures and stuff, all sounded pretty the same. Differences in money really weren't there. One part of it would seem cheaper at one place, but the other place had this step 2 was cheaper. So in the end, you're probably spending about the same.
amount, yeah.
It really came down to people, right? Like who treated our friends the best and where would they like to go to?
And where did we feel comfortable?
Yeah. So that's how we ended up at your office.
So what did you guys decide to do initially?
We started off with IUI. I guess in our mind, it seemed I'll say least invasive. And we obviously knew why we weren't getting pregnant together. And so we wanted to give ourselves a chance to see if it worked. And
nobody in our family had any fertility issues either. So we really thought maybe it would just be a matter of trying to bring in the male factor, and that would allow us to get pregnant. But we also knew that we were older than any of our other family members who had gotten pregnant too. So we knew not to totally guarantee that was going to work. But
And you knew from the beginning that, Danielle, you were the one who wanted to carry.
Yeah.
And so, because I remember just gently broaching the subject from the very beginning, and Courtney was like, no, thank you. She'll be great.
Yeah.
And so we did quite a few IUIs with the first one, and had, the normal up and down fertility road. I remember there was a positive in there at one point, and unfortunately it didn't stay a positive test. And so that's a bit of a bumpy ride as well. But how did you guys go through that IUI process, and what was the evolution as you were thinking, this is going to work, and then, well, maybe there are other things at play here, because you can get pregnant, but it wasn't sticking.
Yeah. Want me to start? So we really were hoping that the just initial IUIs would work. And we knew that it was going to be, medicine. And we knew that it would be an emotional roller coaster too. Because our friends, we have some really great people who are willing to share everything with us. So they didn't sugarcoat any of it. But even knowing all of that, when you're experiencing it, even when it's around really wonderful people who are kind and great, it still really sucks. So
it really does, yeah.
We do you remember we took some breaks in between? I think we had 5 rounds of IUI,
right?
And I think we took a break in between 3 and 4.
I remember a cruise ship with your grandma.
Yes.
was in the middle, because there was a lot of planning around that. Of how do we get grandma to Alaska?
And we, we had these aspirations of not telling anybody in our family that we were pregnant, just like normal people who get pregnant do, and then surprising them with, hey, we got pregnant. So after IUI number 2 didn't happen, and we were having like this emotional tug, and it was so hard not to say anything to our parents, because we're pretty close to both sets of our parents. And by the time we got to number 3, we were like, okay, this is somebody else besides just the 2 of us on this planet, and everybody at the clinic, of course, need to know to try to help us to get through it. But so we did end up telling our parents, but like grandma didn't know. So that was the whole planning around the cruise with her.
So do you think that was a good decision to bring your family into it?
I think it was very helpful at that time. Danielle was very supportive, and I think we make a pretty good team, but it was nice to have that additional support at that point, because, you go in hoping the best, and of course, hoping number 1 works, and then the process kind of plays out as it does. And so it was helpful at that point in time to bring them in. And they knew that we were going to start trying.
Yeah.
We were looking for that exciting moment of, you're going to be grandparents again. And it just wasn't in the plans that way for us.
I think a lot of times the expectations too, when you come in, when you're using donor sperm, you think, gosh, I'm healthy. I should be able to get pregnant right away. And, in reality, exposure to sperm takes a while, several months for most couples to be able to conceive. And I think sometimes with couples who are using donor sperm, they just don't understand that, even if you didn't get pregnant after the second try, it's just, you're human like everybody else. And I think that's kind of a hard thing to deal with.
Sure.
Did you guys talk to a counselor at any point during the process?
No, we didn't. But that bringing in our moms, and I mean, our dads are super supportive too, but honestly, speaking to our moms was like therapeutic for us, because when I tell you that we're close to them, we talk to both of our moms a few times a day at least.
Sure.
So it was harder for us not to say to them, like, we have an appointment at 10 o'clock to go to the clinic, right? That was difficult they'd be like, oh, you're in the car. Where are you heading to? And in any other occasion, we'd be honest and say, oh, I'm just coming from school or doing whatever. So we would have gone to a counselor if that came, was necessary. And actually during the initial, intro to your clinic, that was an offering. That was something that, and we had taken that pamphlet and said, we're not opposed to it. If it gets to that point, we might want to, because we didn't want to ever get too discouraged that we just stopped altogether.
Yeah. And that's actually probably one of the biggest risks that anybody takes with fertility treatment is the frustration factor. And especially with IUIs, where you've got an inherently lower success rate. And when it works, it's phenomenal. But you guys also went through it where it didn't work and it didn't stick, and that's hard not to take personally. But when you were moving forward in it, I mean, we had also been having conversations all along about we're going to do shared maternity. And the plan was always to get Danielle pregnant first using her own eggs and then to move on to Courtney. Because the nice thing is that you both have all the equipment necessary, which is phenomenal. And one of the more fun things when we're working with our female couples is you really do have more options. So how were those discussions at home of who wants to do what, when, and how?
For how long for us, that was part of it.
Yeah. And then since we originally planned, starting with Danielle with IUI, when we did move on to IVF, we just kind of thought we're going to stick with the original plan of we'll start with her egg first. And so we just, I guess, stuck to that there. And there was a lot of back and forth of, are we both going to go through retrievals? I think one of us pushed a little bit more than the other. She got her way. And I'm happy that we did it today. Just at the time when you're going through it, it seems like a lot. And but we've said multiple times over the last few months that we're glad that we did it. And we have a plan in place when we're ready to go for number two.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you were choosing your donor sperm?
That was, out of all of the things, that was really not my favorite, right? I felt like I was picking a toy out of a Toys R Us catalog. And again, the research. So we've been to school for a lot of years between the two of us. So we really like to read, and then we believe in what we read. So it's difficult when you go onto fabulous websites. I think they did an amazing job of trying to capture as much information about the donors as they can. But all that spiraling in the back of our brain is how much of this is true and how do they know what his best interest is and all of that stuff. But
what would you change about that part of the process if you could change it to make it better for other couples in your situation?
I think just go in with an open mind. You kind of, when we first started, we had maybe characteristics or, a plan we were looking for. And as with probably the whole process is we quickly realized that anything we planned wasn't probably going to happen that way. So just be prepared and flexible.
You can't look at every single detail, right? Sometimes more information is not as helpful as you think it is.
Yeah,
so,
it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, more is not more.
Yeah. They give you like the donor's health history that they've hand scored for themselves, right? And everything looks great. And then all of a sudden there'll be some random cousin that they listed having some very random thing that I never even heard of. But then you Google it and you think, oh man, what if that then transfers to the baby?
We then met with genetic counselors. And
like,
the Google black hole is a very deep black hole with a strong gravitational pull.
Yes. And I think we got caught up. We always laugh and say, analysis paralysis. Like we need to put an end to this madness and like start making forward progress. So
my response about what would we tell other people is to start earlier than when we did, right? We didn't even start looking at donors. We knew we wanted a family forever, but we didn't start looking for donors until we had made the commitment to like start the actual process and go to the fertility clinic. And then I felt like we could have used more time. Like as it was, we still did like a full year.
Not that anyone was, we were pressuring ourselves. And then it's the age clock, I think, at that point. And
you're looking at the computer after long days at work and you're, one night you select
none
10
of these
people.
are perfect.
It was just, But we were really... as it turns out for the donor that we ended up picking, because we both were able to get on computers at different times to look through the same companies that had them, it turned out that this one person was a favorite for both of us on the night. So on one night together when it was like a new person. So we were like, oh, it was meant to be. We're just stopping. Don't second guess anymore. Just, you got to kill it.
I've had a number of couples that they've independently gone and tried to pick out donors, and they're always so excited when both people end up picking that same person.
Yes.
It's really neat how that happens.
Yeah.
And so many women, when they come into us, they're really worried about, how is this going to impact me emotionally? Am I going to be a royal pain in the neck? Am I going to be crying all the time? And you didn't do that just for one of you. You did it for both of you in relatively short order. And so how was home during that? I mean, you're both still here and smiling.
So married, so that's,
so we know it worked out okay in the end, but how was it in the middle of that?
I think it was the best idea that we had was to do my retrieval first and then hers. And it could have been vice versa, hers and then mine. But when we were really sensitive to this idea that medication was going to make us a little wonky. So we had this heightened sense of, I'm a little tired or I'm extra frustrated. And we would say to each other, hey, I know I just walked in the door and you've not even said anything to me, but I'm frustrated for no good reason. So I'm just letting you know in case. And then we'd have a good laugh over it because we'd be like, okay, I'm going to go upstairs then just in case in case today's the day you actually explode. But we never, thankfully, had those explosions. It was more emotional, but at the same, I don't know if that was really medication or if it's an emotional thing anyway. So
it's a stressful thing to go through. I went through IVF myself, and I remember getting off the phone with the nurse and crying over nothing. And, after my retrieval,
everything was emotional.
It was just tears would come and it's just so many hopes and dreams are hanging on that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So to keep it all together so that you're just already in that state of be extra sensitive to the person that you're with for that whole time was really helpful because then it was.
We used a lot of jokes that were thrown around, but at the same time, those maybe probably went a little too far at times. Yeah. So then we had to realize.
No. She didn't take that one. Let's go backwards.
Rewind.
Yeah. But it was nice to have the same experience between the two of us too, because the whole getting bloated while you're taking the medication in preparation for retrieval, you describe it, but then somebody else when they're going through it, it was so great too when she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, my pants really don't fit," and I'm like, "I know, I told you, right?" So
the shot. So I was the second retrieval, so I think Danielle enjoyed giving me the shots or watching me give myself the shots a little bit more. So.
Yeah. How did you both fit all of that? Because you both have super busy, just daily schedules. And how do you weave that into the course of the fertility treatments as you're doing it?
Well, go ahead.
Just a lot of planning, and your office was fantastic. There was a lot of early appointments, which was really helpful for us because we could come in before work, and then our work day or schedule stayed on track for us. And the shots for the majority or the medications we were doing at night.
We did have to. We called a couple times to say, "Hey, they told us that we should do it at a 6 p.m. How bad will it be if we do it at a 7 or 8 p.m.?" And they were really honest. Some of them were like, "No, you have to do it on this time," and we made it work. But it was nice to know that if we gave it at 7:05 instead of at 7, that the eggs weren't leaving my body.
We have a few probably good stories or locations where we were giving shots. And
what's the craziest place where you ever gave a shot? Not like in the backside, but.
General
location.
Environment.
One of the concerts we were going to. We were in a bathroom at one of the hotels, and I'm like, we're going to get questioned, for doing this.
For bringing in a needle, through the security for it.
Yeah.
Well, you both look like you are real hellraisers here. I mean.
Yeah, totally. And we, we had the teenage girls giggling because after we gave the shot in the bathroom of one of the hotels where the concert is, we didn't want to dispose of the needle in the garbage can, even though, somebody else would have been just fine, but because we had the caps and everything. But I was like, nope, we will go over to the security guard and kindly tell him we'd like to surrender our so that they could put, and they really did have the
Sharps
bucket
container.
back there.
Yeah.
But then you get the look of, why are they having
they had no idea where the sharps container was because they had never been asked that before.
Anyway, so clearly we weren't doing drugs, although that's what in our brains we were giggling about. We're like, what if they think we're doing drugs? And
you were doing drugs.
Just legal drugs.
For different reasons.
For a very good purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did labor and delivery and the whole pregnancy process go? I mean, did you encounter anything different going to the OBGYN's office or anything unusual, or was it pretty smooth sailing?
It was not smooth sailing.
Danielle literally vomited every day of pregnancy.
Every day.
And we were expecting it, initially morning sickness and all of that. And then it kind of got to a point where I was thinking, well, maybe this isn't quite so normal. But we, of course, asked the doctor, and it was still okay. But
as long as I was gaining a little bit of weight, I didn't. my mom and sister both gained 50 plus pounds in pregnancy. So I was fully prepared to be this giant whale, you know, and then I couldn't keep food down for the life of me. And that was a struggle, but I always tell everybody I was the happiest puking person ever. I mean, I had toothbrushes and mouthwash and
a trash can in her car
and a trash can in my car. And I figured out how to brush my teeth and it just as every day, it just became so normal. It was pretty awful.
But from other friends who have been pregnant, I didn't take that as a normal story.
Yeah.
So not to scare anyone out there.
The nice thing is every pregnancy is different.
Yes.
So
yeah, there's hope for number 2.
Exactly is what I'm saying. Just because that happened with number 1 doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen.
Yeah, I told her she was getting all of that part out of the way, and number 2 is going to be smooth sailing.
Yeah.
So
there was a period where I was having cravings, and we'd never really eat a ton of fast food, but there was a period that we would I would say I feel like a random McGriddle sandwich from McDonald's that I had never had, but I saw on TV. And I'd go to these places and get the food, and then I'd have every intention of eating it. And as soon as I'd walk in the house, I'd get too sick. So Courtney had come home from work, and there was like McDonald's one day and Baskin Robbins and Wendy's all sitting on the counter because I couldn't eat it. And she's like, "Oh, great. One of the 2 of us is getting bigger, and it's not you." So that's okay. But yeah, and then labor and delivery was... it was just he was so great.
Yeah.
It was hard. I went into labor on like 5:45 on a Sunday, and he came out Tuesday at 9:30. So it was long. My water broke. And so in our mind, we thought, we read everything that says if your water breaks 24 hours later, they'll make sure you have that baby. And that did not happen.
It's amazing how babies run the show one way or the other, whether it's, we'll have the water break, but we won't actually contract for a little while.
Right. Or dilate was the,
We were actually, so that was a week before her due date, and we were actually packing the hospital bag, and I kind of joked because it took us a few hours,
to get everything off the bed. Yep. First the checklist, right? Then on the bed, and then into
and I said, well, good thing we took care of that because it was much later than we probably planned. I said, because it's not like your water was going to break, and we were just going to throw that all in the bag. And probably within 2 minutes, she said, I think my water just broke. And
wow.
And it went. So.
Babies come when babies come.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But our parents both were there at the hospital. And even mine came from California. So the baby was giving enough time for my parents to travel. Is apparently what
Awful child. Child. I hope he continues on that trend as he gets older and is meeting all the rest of his milestones.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would tell other couples who are going through about this process? Things you wish you had known, or things that would have made it easier to get through?
I don't know if I don't have anything that would make it easier, but anybody who is going through this, if they have access to find somebody who has gone through it, to be able to ask all the silly questions to in between doctor's appointments, even though we were at your clinic probably twice a week for however long, right? There's still like just hey, I'm sort of like, I have a headache. Do you think that could have anything to do with this medication? Just the silly things that really did make a difference to be able to ask our friends who had just gone through it.
Yeah, and I would just say, keep as open of a mind as you can. You can have all the plans in the world, and it may not happen that way, but in the end, it's all totally worth it.
Yeah. So true. You would have been very proud of us, Dr. Bedient, because the book that with all the plans in it that we had, by the time we got to the labor part, the birth plan was literally just healthy baby, healthy mom, and that's all.
I am so proud of both of you.
That is the most beautiful birth plan.
Yes. I am so proud of you for going with that for your birth plan.
That was a solid 3 years in the making, though, that you had to deal with all of our stuff first. So
yes.
You had to deal with the brunt of it.
No, it was good. And I am so excited for both of you. And I'm excited that we're going to do a shared maternity cycle somewhere along the line here whenever you guys decide you're ready for number 2. Like you mentioned before. So thank you so much for coming to talk with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thanks for everything you've done for us to make a family. Couldn't do it without you, that's for sure.
Nothing makes me happier, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm here with Dr. Abby Eblen from the Nashville Fertility Center, Dr. Susan Hudson from Texas Fertility Center, and I'm Dr. Carrie Bedient from the Fertility Center of Las Vegas. Come see us if you need us. We're always here. And we will be back soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.